So when I was first introduced to the guiding question for today's conference, I was struck by the phrase, an uncertain future. And in essence, the question asks, what should we be teaching students to prepare them for an uncertain future? And so perhaps I should not have been so taken by this phrase, because by definition, the future is uncertain. However, after some reflecting, I realized that for a long time, it was a cultural norm to believe that, in fact, our futures were certain. From the start, young people were told that if they grew up, worked hard, and became educated, there would be fulfilling, meaningful, and economically viable work just waiting for them as adults. And this belief is at the heart of what we all like to call the American dream. And unfortunately, this larger-than-life cliche is no longer the reality for the young people of today. The young people of my generation have grown up watching the adults around them struggle through the economic downturn since 2008. The latest statistics have us college students changing majors 3 times and have most people having multiple careers in different fields throughout their lifetimes. What everybody wants to know is, what do we do? That's why we're here today. We all want to know how we can go about preserving the lightheartedness of our childhoods while simultaneously preparing students in a rational and pragmatic way for a future that we cannot predict. Well, I'm here today to tell you that I have absolutely no idea. End of TED Talk. I'm just kidding, you've still got me for a couple more minutes, because what is within the realm of my experience is high school, and what it's like to be a young person who is just 4 short years away from facing his own uncertain future. So, what I would like to do with you all today is share 3 stories from my time in high school. They are 3 moments, and of course, at their core, 3 lessons that I have learned. So, let's get started. So my first story is about trust. And I've learned about trust through a fulfilling arts education, specifically in theater. To perform in a live theatrical production requires a tremendous amount of trust, but also vulnerability. An actor must trust himself, trust his fellow actors, trust the stage manager, trust the playwright, you get the idea. And I learned about trust early on in my arts education, specifically in my sophomore year during a production of William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. And now in this production, I was playing Nick Bottom, you can see on the screen. And Nick Bottom, as many of you know, is a wonderfully boisterous character who is over the top and just filled with great, hilarious lines and wonderful moments. And in the 5th act of the play, that's really the comedic climax of the play. And it's what I like to call a Shakespearean Saturday Night Live sketch. It's really very funny. The fifth act largely consisted of hilarious dialogue and over-the-top physical comedy between myself and another actor whose name was Nick. And Nick loved trying to get me to laugh during this scene. He wanted me to sit on the stage and just break character. And so what he would do is he would start making his lines more and more hilarious and pushing and making his gestures more and more over the top until I was almost had to just sit on the front of the stage and laugh at what he was doing. And needless to say, the audience loved this. In fact, the 5th act of the play is probably the shortest piece of text, but it was probably one of the longest longest scenes in our production, because we had the entire audience belly laughing throughout the whole thing. And this is one of my most memorable roles, and a time where I remember feeling completely free and in character on stage. And the crowd-pleasing comedy of that final scene came really as a result of a dynamic trust between us 2 actors and our willingness not to be vulnerable and truthful not only with each other, but with the audience as well. This experience taught me the importance of trust, not only on the stage, but in my life. Next, I'd like to discuss humility. Humility does not diminish our pride, rather describes a confidence in oneself that allows the individual to simultaneously value him or herself and be open to the value of others. And the concept of humility came into my consciousness rather recently. In fact, specifically this past December during the early decision day for college admittance. And for those of you who don't know, a student may apply early decision to a college or university, and they will know of their admission status by mid-December. In return, usually, a student is required to attend that college if they are accepted. And the majority of my close friends, along with myself, had ended up applying to college's early decision. And the day that we were all to hear back was December 15th, 2014. And that day is called Early Decision Day. However, my school decided that they were going to notify their applicants on December 16th, so I had a little more waiting to do than everybody else. So when that day came, Early Decision Day, it was actually very exciting because the large majority of my close friends were hearing excellent news and getting accepted to wonderful colleges. But it was really hard for me to balance my genuine excitement for my friends and a genuine and deep-seated nervousness and anxiety that I had about my own impending decision that was coming out 12 hours later. So that was a really long day for me, and when I came home and waited up into the night and watched the clock turn to December 16th, I eventually had this huge relief of getting my own acceptance to the college of my choice. I was happy, yes, but I wasn't necessarily jumping for joy as I had anticipated. In fact, I was sitting in my room and I was emotionally exhausted and just completely drained. And in that moment, I was reminded of one of Oscar Wilde's famous quotes. And Wilde said that anybody can sympathize with the sufferings of a friend, but it requires a very fine nature to sympathize with a friend's successes. And I think this really rings true to me, and I think it's because on some level we are all really comfortable playing the role of the sympathetic friend. It's much easier, it's a much more natural role for us because it doesn't challenge our own status in any way. But a much harder role, a much more difficult role, is the role of the genuinely happy or supportive friend. And this brings me to what I think is the mark of true humility. And that is the ability to value yourself and have enough self-confidence to celebrate a friend wholeheartedly during a time of success. And the variety of reactions to college decisions this past year from students really impressed upon me the true value of humility as a virtue, and as Wilde says, the very fine nature that is required to wholeheartedly engage in it. Next, I'd like to discuss passion. Now, passion can be defined as a willingness to engage and get involved, and the focus and determination to act on that emotion. And passion has been a big part of my life for a really long time. If you can't tell, I'm the type of person who likes to engage and discuss, but if I had to think back to a time where passion really impacted my life, I would go back to my sophomore year English class. And in my English class sophomore year, I had what I would call a lot of misplaced passion, And what I mean by that is that I would get so amped up and excited about the very fact that we were in an English class and having a literary discussion, because that was an academic setting in which I thrived, that my intellectual contributions wouldn't necessarily be communicated effectively. In fact, it would get lost largely in the passion that I put behind my words. But as I progressed throughout high school, in other discussion-based classes, along with my English classes, into junior and senior year, I learned to use passion as a tool to get others excited about my own excitement while simultaneously communicating in an effective, concise, and educated manner. But you all can be the judge of that today. Don't tell me now, though. Just wait until I'm done. And what this experience taught me was that it's always better to bring more passion than less. It's so much easier to turn down passion or excitement than it is to just fake interest. So, what I have shared with you today are 3 stories of my time in high school. For me, these lessons are profound in their simplicity. To me, they seem like things that we should know already, but once we become conscious of them, they really make all the difference. And I think that while the young people of today, myself included, are always moving towards this looming, uncertain future, if we were to focus more on cultivating these types of soft skills, such as trust, humility, and passion, we would be able to embrace the ambiguity of the future with the right combination of childlike openness and then also meaningful rationalism. Thank you.